Okay, last session we discussed about working with the security and authentication details, how to handle them, right? So next, so we need to understand a few more basic things. So we will see some basic of testing, right? How it actually works. So some basics you need to understand about Angular testing. Generally, first, some points about general testing related options. Actually, to deal with testing, you need to learn about a framework. So, which will give you complete clarity on understanding with testing. So, here, so we are learning the basics of how the tests are configured, created, and all. So, if you know the testing frameworks like Karma, Jasmine, Protractor, because testing frameworks have a lot of things to handle. And it's not like you run one command and testing is finished, right? So you have to learn a lot of things about testing in order to deal with the testing individually. So the frameworks are huge. So we need to know those testing frameworks. Here, the testing frameworks are integrated. How Angular tests are performed. One simple point I will show you. So in this first important basic is actually Angular supports frameworks like MVC, and MVVM. So the main one of the main advantage of MVC using MVC and MVVM, so they enable unit testing. They enable unit testing. Unit testing. One of the key feature of them is they enable unit testing. That means technically unit testing, uh, they support test driven development. They support test driven development. Test driven development. That is the one of the main reason to use MVC, MVVM architectures in real world, right? So they support test driven development. So that means so the build development and testing can happen simultaneously. That is what actually test driven development is. And technically unit testing includes testing every function, include testing every function that you write, every function that you write for component or a pipe or service, for service, etc. So it include testing of every function that you write for component, pipe, service, etc. Actually, the concept is testing verifies so whether the expected values and the return values are same. So whether the expected values and return values are same, and report bugs and will report bugs and report and will report bugs. So that is the concept. And Angular is integrated with Jasmine. and Karma-like frameworks. Karma. So which are used for testing. So Jasmine and Karma. So which are used for unit testing. Actually, different other tools can be used like Protractor, like XUnit, JUnit. So several other testing frameworks and tools can be used. So it's not mandatory that everyone have to go with this. So it depends on their requirement actually. So Jasmine and Karma. So this is the framework and approach so that available in Angular. So for testing. Generally, how the testing is performed, what are the concepts of testing, how do we set up the environment actually. In general, first I will tell you, in our Angular applications, it is integrated. Generally, how we manually integrate these frameworks and configure them and use them. One simple approach I will show you. In Angular, already these are integrated. You have to just run a command to verify. You have to learn how to write the tests, how to configure the tests actually. So here, I will give you a basic overview of how actually the tests are manually configured, how the tests are defined manually, configured manually. Later we can test with our application. So test with the application, right? So in our project, so what we will do is here I will create a new folder. In our project, I will create a new folder, testing demo. Okay, just an empty folder. And I want to install the testing framework. I'm showing manually how we set up the environment for testing. So here we are installing the testing framework. So in our project, first we are installing the testing framework. We created a new project repository and we are installing the testing framework. To install the testing framework, you have to just run the command npm install and Jasmine. So Jasmine core. So you have to install Jasmine core, npm install Jasmine core. So you are installing this Jasmine core for your project actually. I'm showing you manually how it is actually integrated and used. Because our Angular application, you don't need to integrate that, already it is integrated. You have to just run the commands. So you have to just run the commands, configure the tests. First, we are seeing manually how it actually defines. So I'm installing this Jasmine code. So the testing framework, right? We are downloading Jasmine code as the testing framework for our project. So I'm showing you how do we set up environment. That means set up framework for testing. Generally, how we set up the framework for testing. So this is for testing manually. So it is not recommended for Angular because Angular has automatically configuring the testing. Here manually, how do we define the testing? Just a basic thing we will see. So for that, what we done is create a new folder in your projects, in your workspace by name some testing demo. Okay, then install Jasmine framework for your projects, for your workspace. You have to install Jasmine framework for your workspace. So for that, we need to use the npm install and Jasmine core. So we are installing the Jasmine framework here. Okay, so that is installing the Jasmine framework. So once the Jasmine framework is installed, so Jasmine core framework is installed. Okay, now once it is installed, so we will go to the testing project, and in that we will add a new file, some home.html. Okay, in this, I want to set up the test environment. I want to launch the testing and start testing here. So my application may contain a lot of components, services, functions, all of them we can bring here and create the tests. So we are just adding home HTML. So, and let's create a simple HTML document. In the head section of HTML document, you need to get some library now. You can see that in the node modules, actually, Jasmine related library is installed here. So Jasmine related library will be installed here. It is available here. So Jasmine related library, and from where we have to get everything, Jasmine, and we have Jasmine core. So we need to bring the repository from that Jasmine core, and we have to set up everything here. Actually, what are the files you need to set up in environment for testing? Actually, the files that we need. So a link relation is equal to style sheet. So and link href is equal to, we need from node modules. So from dot slash, so node modules. From node modules, so we need to go into Jasmine core. In the Jasmine core, so you will find lib. In that lib, we need to again go into Jasmine core, right? In that Jasmine core, we have jasmine.css. That is a CSS file required for Jasmine. So this is one CSS file you need to include in the page. Okay. Next, we need to link some scripts that are required for the Jasmine. So script source is equal to, so it is from node modules, Jasmine core, and lib. In that Jasmine core, in that we have jasmine.js. This is another file required for enabling Jasmine framework. And this loads the Jasmine framework. And to use Jasmine in HTML, you need another script. So node modules, Jasmine core, and lib, Jasmine core. And here, Jasmine HTML.js. Order also important. We have to include the scripts in the same order actually. And to start the testing, you need another script here. So that is from node modules, Jasmine core, and from lib, so Jasmine core, boot.js. So that is required for starting the testing. So these all files are enough. These all files are enough for configuring the test framework and setting up the testing framework and to start testing your application. So I'm showing you manually. This is all set in your Angular application actually. So I'm showing you how Angular application sets up everything for you. So here you can see, I will open this page, home.html, and there is nothing inside the body section of home, only the head is configured. And you can see that now it is defined with this framework. That means now Jasmine 3.5 and Jasmine is ready. So the testing options are ready. And currently incomplete, there are no specifications found. So that means there is nothing to test currently. It's empty. There are no test specification. So we need to create test specifications. So that means in your project, Jasmine framework is ready for testing. Now you write your unit tests. So it will test them and it will verify are they matching your requirement or not, and it will report the bugs. So this is the basic to enable the test framework actually. So what you actually need to do is after installing this, so you need to create, a new file. So let's create a new file. So that means you need to create a new file. So create a new HTML document and add into project. So that is some home.html, home.html. And in that, we have to include all the files. So we need to include all the files into project and link the following files. In home.html, just you need all these files. That is just a syntax for that, right? You need all these files. The style sheets and the JavaScript files that you initially need to set up the environment for testing. Now we need to test every component, service, and function. Generally, you should know that technically, testing every component or a service or pipe service pipe or module, so include three stages module functions, so include three stages. Testing generally basically include three stages actually. So what are the three stages? Module function include three stages. What are the three stages? Actually, testing have three basic points. One is arrange, another one is act, another one is assert. So we have three steps actually: arrange, act, and assert. What are these options? Nothing but in unit testing, these are the three basic points actually. So arrange is nothing but arrange is it is configuring the test description. It is configuring the test description. So that means you can simply say that it is describing the test. It is describing the test. It is describing the test. So the test description is defined. So by using arrange, arrange is describing the test. That means what you want to test, what you are testing, what is the purpose of test. So all these are specified in arrange. And act, actually, act is it specifies the function to test. Act specifies the function to test. Describing the test is arranging, and what the function to be tested is acting, that is act. And we have assert. Assert is technically, so verifying, verifying, verifying the expected and return value, expected and return value. So verifying the expected and return value, and report the test result, either pass or fail. Test result, pass or fail. That is assert. Assert will verify the expected and return value. So, and it will report the test result, pass or fail actually. These are three options configured. And different testing frameworks use different functions actually. Different testing frameworks use different functions. In Jasmine and Karma like frameworks, usually arrange is done by using a method called describe. Is done by using a method called describe. And act is done by using a method called it. Act is done by using a method called it. And assert is done by using a method called expect by using expect. It will have several child functions and options. So in different frameworks, different approaches will be there. Means different functions will be there. But approach is always same. Arranging, acting, asserting. So approach will be the same. So I will show you a basic point here, how it actually does. Means how it actually configures and defines. So technically here, so we will just run the test, means configure one test. So what I will do is, how this arrange, act, assert works, we will see that. Syntactically, we should know how to write them. So how do we configure them? That means syntactically, we write the tests in this way. We have a describe function, and that is test description. It contains a test description. And describe is a function actually, function. And inside the test description, so this is test description actually. In the test description, that means you are telling what to test it out. You have to specify the function by using it. You have to define the test purpose. What is the test purpose? Means test purpose, or simply you can say test function. And its purpose. That means what is the function you are going to test? What's the purpose? You have to configure that. And it is also a function. And what this function will do is, it will use expect. Expect will call your function. So expect will call your value. That means this is the returned value. And this returned value to be, or to be truthy, to be falsy, so many functions are there. So to be null, to be equal, to be truthy, to be falsy, so many functions will be there. And to be, and you have to just define the expected value. We need to define that. This is the basic configuring of testing. There can be several levels of configuring. You can define several levels of configuring. So here, so test comprises of this type of approaches. I will show you. This is manually I'm showing because all the tests are in your Angular applications are built in. So you just add the components, the test files are generated and you have to configure and use them. Initially, so I will set this manually. Then I will add a new folder called some components. In our testing demo, I will add components. In the components, I am adding a new file. I am adding a new file. Generally testing the file. So two files will be there. If you remembered, one is our component file, another one is spec file. So here we will create directly JavaScript files which are transcompiled into JavaScript, TypeScript for us actually. So here I'm using math.component.ts, .js directly, JavaScript file, math.component.js. That is the file. So I'm configuring that file. Okay. In this file, we generally write the functions. So that means we will write a function. So function is addition, and addition function is having two parameters, a and b, and it should return a plus b. Okay. There can be multiple functions. So I will write another function hello, and it is a string, and here it is defining some hello, that string is printing. So here return, so the string, return string. Okay, that's the basic two functions we have written. Now for this, we need to create tests. For these two functions, we need to create the tests. Then generally tests are created in a test file. So I will add a test file, math.component.spec.js. That is the testing file. Usually traditionally testing files will given with the extension spec file. That is the test file. Spec is just the name actually. Finally, it is a JavaScript file. Now in this spec file, we have to create unit tests for these functions. Generally, how do we write? So we have to use describe. And the describe, what is the test name? Description, that is math component test. Component test. Okay, that is the math component test. So it is a function which comprises of, it is a function which comprises of what to test inside this. So we have to configure by using it. What is the expectation string? Expectation string is nothing but, so expectation string is addition test. Okay. And it is a function. It is a function. And what this function is expecting, that means we have to define expect. We need to access the addition function. So we are adding the addition function. Already we have the addition function. And this addition function is expecting two values, a and b values. It is present in another file. So that I defined 10, 20. Okay. That is your function and its value. But what you are expecting from that result? Actually, I am expecting to be closer to be defined, to be falsy, to be false, greater than or equal, instance of, less than. So many test functions will be there. So testing is not just run one command and testing is finished. So it's a very big framework. Testing frameworks, you need to learn individually to deal with them. A lot of things are there to handle with them. So here that is integrated. That's the reason people run one command and see that. But they have to know how it is actually built in that. Now here I am defining, so what is your expected to be? I want this result to be according to my expectation. That result is actually 40. As per my expectation, that means according to our requirement, the result is 40. But what it is returning is different. It is not returning what I want. So, but what I want, I have to define in to be. Okay. So that is one. You can write any number of uh, tests inside this. You can create nested also. That means inside this describe, you can write another describe. That means parent child hierarchies. And you can write multiple tests. I will write another test. This is hello test, and it is a function. And this time, so expect. And what is the function? We have hello function, and the string is some John. So we passed that John as a string, and to be, here we are defining to be. So the to be is John. To be is John. Okay. So one is returning what I am expecting. Another one is not returning what I am expecting. Okay. Now, once you configured your specifications, then you need to include these tests. We need to call these tests. You can write any number of descript, any number of options, even nested also. Now we need to go to home.html and we need to keep these tests here. That means in the script, so we have to link the source. So it is from components. First one is math component.js. We need that component because that component have the source files and then the test file. src, it is from components / math component.spec.js, the specification file. We are configuring the specification files. So that means we are linking. So both the component and its specification file and giving to the testing framework. Then when I run this, you can see that it shows the options. So it says that now you can see your testing is working. And you see that two specifications are there, one failure. What are the two specifications? So two specifications, nothing but one is addition test, another one is hello test. You can see that. Click on specifications list, you will see that. You will see that component test, that is the description. In that two specifications are there, addition test, hello test. So the rules, as per the rules, addition test and hello test is there. And actually hello test, addition test failed, hello test is passed. So two specifications and one failure. So hello test passed, so no failures. It is passed. So then what is passed, what is failed is this addition test failed. You click on that, it says that expect 30 to be 40 actually. That means you are expecting 40, but it is returning 30. It should be 40. Then what we need to do actually, we need to change the function return value, not the expected value. This will be always standard because that is what we are finally expecting. So then I will change 2020. Okay, then you can see that now it is fine. And both the tests passed. So you can see addition test, hello test, 0 failures are there. That means if anything is not matching, suppose this time John's spelling is wrong. And you can see now test failed. This time hello test failed. So it is not having that what we are expecting actually. So this is how generally test is defined, test is configured. Now, what happens is in our Angular application, everything is ready for you. configured for you. Framework is installed, configured for you. Just you have to generate the test file for every component. You can manually add the test file, just like now I added. You can call the functions. You can test those functions by using describe it, so that it will verify whether the expected and your requirements are matching or not. So that is what generally happening for test. So here you can observe, suppose in our project, that means in this, what we need to do example. So here we are adding a new folder, add a new folder, components, and in that add a new file. So add following files. So one file, so we added is, that is home.component.js. And in this home component.js, so this is the code actually we have, means we have the functions to test actually. We have the functions to test. Then we need home.component.spec.js. And in here, we are configuring the tests and we are defining the tests. So by using describe function, we are configuring and defining the test. Now, just what we need to do is we need to include into home.html. Home.html. In the home.html, we need to include that. So just we need to keep all these in the head section. The scripts need to be defined. Then it is ready for testing. And it will report if there are any problems in testing. So any problems in testing. So this is the basic approach. This is the basic approach how generally tests are configured. Now in your Angular application, let's go to our Angular application. In our Angular application, in our projects, so we have demo app. Now demo app, so or Amazon, any application that we have. So generally, so when we generate components, earlier we were ignoring the test files. We can manually add the test files now. So for every component here, you can see that a spec file can be generated. You can observe that spec file. Okay, let's create a simple example for that. For that, you need to learn testing, na? Test plans, test cases, test methods. Without learning testing, how you will answer the question? In interview, people ask the question means you will keep fake experience without having experience. Then obviously people will ask question, right? Testing is not, just told you, testing is a big framework. You have to know a lot of things about testing, right? So that is not a part of Angular. That is, testing is separate, right? Testing is individually, people have to deal with that. I told you already, Karma, Jasmine, Protractor, these are the frameworks people have to learn. And that framework is used in Angular. Angular is not providing testing. Angular is using them. Those frameworks are used in Angular. I hope you are clear with that. Huh? So for that, obviously, if you put some fake experience, without having experience, you can't answer testing related questions. Huh? Because testing, so much in-depth question can be there if you show up with fake experiences. And obviously you have to learn those frameworks, Jasmine, Karma like frameworks. I just showed you one function, to be, right? I just showed you how we write a description. So approach for towards testing will be lot of things different, right? So technically, so I just given you what Angular is integrated with. So suppose let's create one application. So that means ng generate application, ng generate application, final project, suppose some final project. And here, so the application is created. So we are creating an application. Some final project is the application here. Yeah, I would like to add Angular routing. So, and CSS, some basic things we installed inside this. Now we are generating the components. So, or services or pipes. We are creating components, services, and pipes. For every component, service, and pipe, a spec file will be generated for you. A test file will be configured and generated for you. Yeah. Once it is done successfully, so then, so here we will go into that project. So a final project and source in the app. Okay, let's open an integrated terminal. I'm generating ng generate component home. I'm not ignoring the spec file now. So we are generating the home component and ng generate component products is the component. We are generating a component. So we can generate services. So ng generate service and some data service, and it generates a spec file for that. So service, so a spec file for that. And once you added a service, yeah, it is done. Now, so many things we configured. Now you go to your project and you can observe that. Let me close all this. Yeah. In the app folder, so in the home component, and you see home component spec file is there. And you open that spec file and you can see that here it is having everything just like what we have discussed. It is importing that home component here because to access the functions, it has to do that. And it is using a describe function, that is the home component testing, that is the describe function. And it is having the options like it should create a component, the component created or not. These are lambda for functions. That means it simply says true the, to be true the, to be falsy. It can have different options. So testing, I already told you, testing framework requires a lot of things. I given you a basic overview because you have to learn the complete approach of testing and learn the framework detailing, XUnit, JUnit, or Protractor, or Jasmine and Karma like frameworks for testing. They will generally testing includes a serious plan of approaches, so understanding about situations and testing them. So here you can see that these are the options defined here. And should create is true the some home components. This is home component. And the rules for the home component, like some app components. So you can observe here app component. App component related spec file is there. In that spec file, you can see it is having some more options, like it should create the app. That's okay. It should have title. And the title of project must be final project to equal. It says that that app title must be equal to final project. So that means it is testing only title is correctly defined or not, configured or not. If title is not app project, so then it will return some error. Actually in component, you see title is final project. If I say that my project, I change it to my project. So title is wrong. That means it is not what it is expecting as per the rules there in the testing. So then it should report error. That means you see it says that so should have as title final project. That is just only what it is expect, and expect app title to equal to this point. So that is what I showed you manually. So that is the point. If it is not, then it will show an error. For a service, so for a service, the test files are generated. As per the service rules, we configured the tests, and a service is should create the service or not. So that is true, the service created, service configured, service injected. So these all requires good knowledge of Angular as well as testing frameworks. We have to be in detail understanding of these testing frameworks, because testing frameworks are huge. Now, here already some tests are configured, and we made some change saying that app title, we don't have exactly what it is expecting. Now in Angular, how we can start this test, how we can configure the test. Generally, test configurations so are defined. So test related configurations are defined in karma-config.js. In karma-config.js, actually it is using the Jasmine framework, and it is installing and loading all the Jasmine and Karma frameworks. It is adding plugins. So it is configuring a development kit. Everything it is integrating it into your application. And it is running that in a separate port number. 9876 is the port number. And in which browser it is going to launch your tests, that is Chrome, you can change them. So it will show the various options. So various options, what are the options for testing? What library is required and used, configured? This is everything defined here. That is everything defined here. So that is the testing related configuration settings are defined here. Now, once you want to test your Angular application, you don't need to do all what we have done just before this. So you have to just run a command. Everything is set up for you. But manually how to configure, I showed you that. So just what you have to do is we have to run the command. So here we have to do ng test. Just you have to run ng test. Now this ng test is the command technically. So this ng test is the command which will start your tests, which will configure your tests. If you want to test any specific project from our specific location here, suppose because we are in a workspace, then you can write ng test -- project is equal to, so final project, that is, and you run that, and you can see that, and it is going to test it and configure it. So it will start the testing framework. It will load the library, and it will launch the tests in a browser. It will take care of everything. It will configure and define everything. So it is going to launch everything. It is going to configure everything. So it is building, and it is testing, and it is launching the test on the browser. And in the browser, it will get the framework here. You can see that the Jasmine 3.5 is configured and defined. And you can see that 6 specifications are there, 2 failures are there in your project. 6 specifications and 2 failures are there in your project. So this is what we done just now. We manually configured everything. Now here it is launching everything for you. Now you go to the specifications list. Then it says that home component should create. Okay, it is created. Products component should created. and data service to create it is created. App component so is failed. It created successfully, but title is having a problem. Should render title, should have title final project. And when I click on this, then it should show what's the problem in that. That means what is the problem in that. So that means it says that, so the expected is given my project, and it is actually to be equal to final project. That's what it is expecting. That is one problem. Another one is rendering title have a problem. Rendering title is nothing but, so it has to render the title and display, and so rendering title, actually it has to render final project as title in the rendering output, but it is showing as my project. That is also a problem. That means this is the test failed as per you write them. Already I showed you how we write them. Then generally, now I will go here and I configure into the component and change this to final project as it is expecting. So I'm building this again. And in the app component HTML, so that final title need to be rendered actually. So the final project title need to be rendered. That means in this HTML file, you have to make sure that the title is rendering. So rendering the title, because that is also shown as a problem. So title is rendered. Okay, now everything is rendered. So title also rendered here. And you can see that now all are passed. Because the same title, what it is expecting, it is rendering it. So all the tests passed. There are 0 failures. So that is the approach of testing. Now, when you know testing framework, you will learn how to write for various causes. So for truth, for falsy, for options, all these. But that requires good knowledge of testing. So here, so you have to just run only one command here. So you just run a command like, so ng test, what the project you want to test. So, but you need to understand how the process is configured actually. That's what I explained here. I haven't used that. So because in your Angular application, so in your Angular application, so in your Angular workspace, you have to run the command. You have to run the command. In your Angular workspace, you have to run the command. So you configure ng. So here we need to define ng test. So hyphen project and is equal to, so your project name. So this will launch automatically the test and configurations here. So you have to technically, so go to karma config to configure the live server for testing and browser to configure the live server for testing, live server and browser for testing, and browser for testing. There are so many things, test beds, test plans, all these are. But this is the basic approach generally you need to follow to run your tests in Angular. Right, but actually how manually that is configured, this is the process I showed you. That is manually how do we define, how actually it uses the test. First it will arrange, then it will act, then it will assert. And here you need to just write the functions. We need to just configure the functions and define the functions. So all the specifications are defined, just you have to run this ng test and it will return the test results. And if there are any mismatches, you can manually write the functions now. When you are adding more methods, so you can write those methods and configure the methods in the spec file, and you can tell what is expected. This is general basic thing how you need to know about the testing is done in Angular application. So you need a separate knowledge of testing frameworks like Karma, Protractor, right? Jasmine, Karma, Protractor, sometimes so XUnit, JUnit like testing tools regularly used, right? Now, once you know this, then you can easily handle these test environments. I will give you one sample documentation of Karma framework. You can go through that to learn about testing individually. So using Karma framework, I will post you a document, you can go through that. So that is for people who want complete knowledge on testing, actually, the experts on testing especially, right? That is how testing is defined. Next, another important now we need to know about deployment and building. So building and deploying. Building and deploying Angular applications. Building and deploying Angular applications. The concept of building and deploying Angular applications. Actually, the concept of building is nothing but, so technically, so is the process of building is the process the is building is the process of compiling Angular application. It is the process of compiling the Angular application and checking the syntax errors. It includes checking dependency injections, dependencies, and checking the directives, checking the metadata, right? Checking the services, everything. All these comes under that. And reporting the errors, checking the errors, reporting the errors. And after successfully checking that, so after checking, so transcompiling into JavaScript, because browsers cannot understand the TypeScript, transcompiling into JavaScript. So transcompiling TypeScript into JavaScript. So, and finally, copying all compiled JavaScript files into output directory, into output directory. So this entire process, it is output directory. And output directory is the directory which is used for deployment. That means, so that is where finally all the files are present, you can deploy. That is where all the files are present, you can deploy. So that is building. And for building, so many options are present, so many configurations. And final build information is copied into dist folder, distribution folder, dist folder. After the building is successfully compiled, everything is done, finally information is copied into dist folder. So dist is used for deploying. So it is used for deploying. You can deploy on local servers, you can deploy on you can technically deploy on the live servers. So you can configure anywhere. You can define and configure anywhere. Actually, so Angular provides uh, commands for building application. So building application. So for building application, what are the commands? Actually, earlier what you are doing is, so earlier you are using earlier you were using ngserve, actually ngserve. So which is using earlier you are using ngserve, which is implicitly using a webpack which is using a webpack for building building while serving. But generally we have to build individually, so before you serve or before you deploy. Earlier we were using directly ng serve directly we were using, which is implicitly configuring. It is using a webpack for building. So we have to manually build and configure. For that we can use the commands. So like application requires few important commands, like, so what are the commands used regularly in building? The configuration of building, right? So how many options configurations are used for building? So the command and the description. So a small point here is technically, so we have ng build. So we have ng build is the build command. So it is generally, it builds the entire application. Usually it builds complete Angular application, Angular application, Angular application, Angular application with the with the defaults, right? That is all the default configurations and settings. It will take care about everything. Sometimes what we want is, when you are building, so uh, in this default what happens is, default output directory, output directory is dist. Default startup page is index.html, index.html. And default base href is, so already I told you, slash. So generally, if you want to change them, right, with these defaults it will generate everything. If you want to change them, then we need to configure like ng build. We can define ng build, and here we can use the command hyphen output path. We can write the command output path, and the output path defines the folder name. Output path defines the folder name. And this is required, especially this is required, that is the folder name. This is required to use. It builds the output into a new directory instead of dist. So by default it is dist, so everything will be copied into the dist. If not, you can use a different folder. So you can use that folder name and configure that path. You can also use ng build as a base href. Base href is equal to some http:// some local host something. local host or something. So slash some port number, some 8080, something like this. This is generally used. This is technically used. This is generally used to change the href, to change the base href. So you can change the base href to any specific port number if you want to run on that particular local servers. And we can also use ng build option, ng build, so hyphen hyphen. And yeah, you can configure ng build hyphen hyphen. And index is equal to some login. That means it will not start with index page, it will start with login page. That means to change the startup page. All these commands are required for building. And configuring. So we have to run these commands to build our application. And once application is built, then we have to deploy Angular application. We have to deploy Angular application. Actually, you can deploy Angular application. You can deploy Angular application on local servers. Like you can use a XAMPP server, you can use an IIS server, you can use an WAMP server, like so MAMP server. All these are the local servers. You can deploy on local servers. So you can deploy your Angular application on cloud servers. So you can deploy on cloud servers. Cloud servers, you can do that by using Firebase. So you can do that by using Azure. You can do that by using AWS, right? On cloud, you can use that on Now. You can use that on Netlify. You can use on GitHub pages. So you can configure with npm also. So you have AWS already, I showed you, right? Amazon cloud. So these are all on cloud servers. We can deploy on cloud servers, or we can deploy on local servers. All these days, it was working on a local server. Cloud servers, because we are not paying, we can try free, but one risk is servers need to respond for us when we are dealing with free. Paid servers, okay, fine, but free servers, no. Sometimes they will not respond immediately. You have to wait for a long time for dealing with them. So sometimes they ask to rebuild again and again. So that risk will be there when you are trying on free servers. Otherwise, everything is fine. We can deal with that, right? So we have to keep patience in deploying on live servers. I will show you one simple deployment, building and deployment on how we can do that on live servers. So to build and deploy on live servers technically, actually now Angular 9 and 10 versions. So we have two deployments. Angular can use manual and automated deployment tools. So so 100% automated is supported. Manually deploying is nothing but copying and pasting into a location. That is not recommended at all. So automated deployment tools are recommended. And now actually Angular recommended to use always recommended to use automated deployment deployment tools deployment tools. And Angular has different automated deployment tools. So it provides Angular Fire, Angular Fire. So for Angular Fire, this is for Firebase. It provides Azure Deploy. So Azure ng Deploy, ng Deploy. This is for Azure. It provides so Jet ng Deploy. This is for now, and it provides, these are the packages. Angular CLI GH pages, CLI GH pages. And this is for GitHub. So Git. So it provides several predefined packages which you can use for deploying. So we can use ngx, so deploy npm. So this is for npm. These are all the packages actually. Now we can use these deployment tools. So now in Angular 9 and 10, it is easy. You can just plug in and use them. You don't need to much worry about this. So we just need to plug in and use them. So let's see that. Means how do we install these packages and how we can deploy that. I will just show you a simple example on how we can deploy and how we can configure the applications. So actually, and one point I told you already, like, so many times when you are using free servers, in one attempt, it will not be succeeding every time. Means server will not respond, server says timed out. You need to keep on trying on that, right? So that's okay, fine. But I will show you how we can manage this process, how we can deploy. I will show you a simple deployment, how it is done on Angular application, how the deployment is done. So we will see here, here we will see Angular deployment on Firebase. So Firebase is a Google Cloud environment. This is the Firebase. You can use free, but free, free is free always. It will not respond to you every time in the same way. Paid services will be accurate. So here it will provide a free service. You can try them. Deploying your Angular application live, right? That is what we are doing on live servers. That means we are deploying on that. Actually, for this, generally, you need a Firebase account. You need to install the Firebase. You need to configure. So some important things you need to follow. First step is go to Firebase. In the Firebase, log in with your Google account. Register for Firebase with your Google account. And then you can go to the console. I have the Firebase console. In this, you will have add project, and click on add project and create a live project here. Because it is going live, so you should take a unique thing like smart shopping. So that is the name I given. And you see the name is, so for project, that is the unique identifier. That is the project name. Smart shopping is the project name. Okay, then continue. And it will provide you all these facilities for your project on cloud. Okay, just continue. Select your default Firebase account and create a project. Okay, to deploy on Firebase, do deploying on Firebase. So first what we need is so create create a Firebase account by using your Google account. So and this is the Firebase location where you log in here. Yeah. So this regularly happens. So some connection interruptions. Okay. Smart shop is the project. Okay. Continue and Firebase account create. So you can get it that from firebase.google.com, right? You can create the account there. And after that, you need to create a project. So create a new project and just I given some name as a smart shop shopping. Okay, just the project name you configured that. Now what we need to do is, so go to your project workspace in VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Then actually you have to install the Firebase plugin for your computer to use Firebase, and you have to log in into Firebase actually. So for that, what you need to do is, so once the project so created successfully, Smart Shop project is ready. So we created a project and Smart Shop project is ready. This is your project overview. The functions, hosting, storage, so much will be there. Everything will be configured here. And this is a free cloud, right? So yeah. And here, so I given Smart Shop, fine. That is the project name. Now you have to go to your workspace. Then you need to install the plugins for that. That means what you have to do is install so Firebase tools for your workspace, for your computer actually, for your PC. You have to install the tools for PC. So then you have to run the command npm install -g and Firebase tools. So we have to install the Firebase tools. So in the project workspace, so now what we need to do is we need to install the Firebase tools. We need to install the Firebase tools. That means npm install -g Firebase tools. We have to install. Already I have installed that. So once you installed, then log in into the Firebase. Then the next step, so what you have to do is, the next step you have to log in into Firebase account. You have to log in into Firebase account. For that, again, you have to run a command called Firebase login. That means you have to log in into your Firebase account. That means here you have to use, so Firebase, after installing Firebase login. Then it will ask to sign in into your Google account. It will ask your user ID and password for Google. So you have to provide that. If already you logged in the browser, then it will directly log in and display here. So that means we have to log in into the Firebase account here. Okay, now you see it says, so already logged in as my email is shown. That means successfully logged in. Good. After you successfully logged in, that means after logging into the Firebase. Now what you have to do is, so build the project. So build your project for production. Build your project for production. You need to build your project for production. Which project you want? For example, we have the project called Flipkart Shopping. So many projects are there, and make sure that your project is having proper navigation techniques and all, because this all matters. Otherwise, directly it will not come, right? Those all matters. So many issues will come when you are dealing with this path references and all will come. So first build for the production. How we to build for the production? We have to just use ng build hyphen project is equal to Flipkart build project Flipkart. That is the Flipkart project for production hyphen product. So this is building your Flipkart project for production. So we have to run that and enter. That means we need to build your project for the production. So then you have to run the command. I told you the command that is required for this. And this is the command. So you need to define. So ng build, so project name, and the project for production. Now what this ng build command will do is, ng build command is going to display. It is going to technically create the dist folder. In the dist folder, it will add this all the compiled files into the dist folder for this project. So then important is, that means your project is ready. Your project is ready to use, and your project is ready to deploy on live. So once the build is completed for that, so once the build is completed for the production, everything is built here, successfully built here. You can see that in the workspace, you will find a dist folder is generated. In the dist folder, we have Flipkart. In this Flipkart, all the files are generated which are required for production. That means for live, going live. So a dist folder is generated which contains the project for the production. So it is production ready now. So now once it is production ready, now what we need to do is, so that means this will generate. So this will generate the dist folder for you. Okay. Now once it is production ready, so this will generate dist folder with your project repository. It will generate dist folder with your project repository. Okay, that's done. Once it is done, now earlier we have a manual process to do that. Now we can use the plugins for various cloud environments. As I told you, what you can do is, now you can add the plugin in this way. So ng add. So for Firebase, we need Angular/Fire plugin. So for which project? Hyphen project is equal to, for which project you want to add the plugin. So the project name is Flipkart, for Flipkart. So add the Fire plugin for this Flipkart project. It will take care about deploying on Firebase. So that means which project you want to deploy, you need to define that. That means, so now Angular Firebase plugin will take care about adding your project onto the cloud. Okay, hit enter. Now it will set up the complete environment for deploying this project on Firebase. So it is installing all the required plugins which are needed to push your application onto live productions, right? So onto the production cloud servers in order to push this, and it is taking you and it is installing all the packages for that. So what you have to do is you have to install, that means add Angular Firebase plugin for your project. So which will take care about take care the deployment process, which will take care the deployment process, which will care about the deployment process. And how do we do that actually? So generally we do in this way. That means how we define that. How we do that is just we need to add that plugin. So that means we have to use ng add and Angular/Fire. And I given a list for cloud for AWS and all. And here we need to use -- project is equal to the project, some Flipkart, that is the project. And it is now see, it says that package installed and preparing the Firebase project. It is asking currently in your Firebase account. So 3 projects are there, into which project you want to live host it. We want to host in Smart Shop. Select that Smart Shop project. Using up down arrows, you can select. You can see at the bottom, it shows that. It says that into which production project you want that. That means live project. On Firebase, we have a Smart Shop. Okay. And I selected that Smart Shop and enter. It is finished. That means configuring for that is finished. That means configuring for that is done. That means this will ask for select a option. That means you have to select your Firebase project. Select your Firebase project to deploy. So the Firebase project is Smart Shop. So we have Smart Shop. That is the Firebase project to deploy. That means now this Flipkart is pushed on to the Smart Shop now. That means now our project is no longer Flipkart, it is Smart Shop. And this is not yet done. You configured it. Now we need to deploy everything into it. Now we need to set ng deploy, and -project is equal to Flipkart. Now it will push all the files into that. Configuration is finished, but it need to push all the files of Flipkart project into the live deployment. That means we have to run the command deploy, ng deploy. That means next step, what we have to do is, so deploy all repository, deploy entire repository into live server, into live application. So how do we do that? For that actually, so we need to run the command. So we need to run the command, and the command is ng deploy and - project is equal to Flipkart. And this is where sometimes it will you need to keep patience, because sometimes servers will not respond immediately. You have to keep on trying again and again, because if server responds immediately, because we are using free servers, you can't complain on that, right? If you are using free servers, then it will take a little while to do all that. So, and it is starting deploying and hosting on that, okay? And it is done. So that means it is finishing everything. Finish, deploy, complete. That means now your project is ready. And you can see that what is your project URL. So you can see in your Firebase account, our project URL is actually, so this is the Firebase project. And you can see that, so this is the project. And all projects are, see all projects here we have, these are all the projects. And this is our project. And usually our project comprises of the hosting. You can see that. So this is the project hosting. It will get all the information about the hosting. So authentications, details, extensions, everything will be defined here. Now what we need to do is we need to start this project. We need to start that project. Generally, how the project will be there. So hosting related information, everything will be configured here. When recently hosted, the dashboard will get you all the information. Go to hosting category. It will get you the information. So that means what you need to do is go to hosting. So that means here you need to go to hosting. So after deployed finish, right? So deploy, deployment finished, then go to hosting and access the domain. So domain, your domain is this. In hosting, you can see this is your project domain. My iShop firebaseapp.com. That means here. So what is that name? That is my iShop. That is iShop. Some other project is there. So smart shop we created, no? Right. So that is the deployment is done. This is that project smart shop overview. Yeah. Go to hosting of that smart shop, and its process, its name will be defined there. Already we have installed and configured everything. It is like, it will be like this smart shop .firebaseapp.com, and the startup is home as per our routing. So that is the option here we have defined. So we have defined this one, hosting deployment is one more time we will configure that. It is just one more time I will deploy this now. It will take little while because sometimes it will say that timed out, you need to keep on trying. Finally, once it is deployed, so you see, I will show you. So my iShop, right? That is another one I have. Yeah. So when you open this, and finally your account will come here. This is our project. This is our project. Now this project is working live. This is on our Firebase. This is working live. See, to keep it live deployment, so you have to have a proper application, navigations and everything, paths, configurations and everything. You can see I click on these options. Now everything is working fine here. Even your images are also pushed in. So because you observe so every content is there. Only the point is, if you are working with databases, server side technologies, you need to know the cloud configurations. You need to deploy your database also. You need to deploy your server side application also. And then finally it comes and it works. Manager home, it is asking for login. And we are selling categories. Click on the categories, click on the details. Everything is working fine. It is working live now. Our project is working live. So this is the process for deploying on live cloud servers. But they will not have a correct behavior until or unless you have a paid account, because lot of issues people come with a complaint with these free cloud servers because they don't respond immediately. Some issues will be there, but still, so you try 1-2 times for deploying this, because if any issue comes, you keep on deploying this. Then finally the deployment is completed. So then you have the final option ready. And this is the deployment ready. So if you want to change where you want to deploy, actually, so default application, it is using my iShop. We can change the default application where to deploy that, everything to be deployed. It is deploying there because I have two apps. It is deploying in my iShop. So if you want to change that, actually what you need to do is, there will be in your project, there will be a Firebase source file. In your project, there will be a Firebase source file. You have to go into that. You see Firebase RC file is there. Go to this Firebase RC file. The default project is my iShop, and it targets my iShop hosting the Flipkart, and it is defined. So Smart Shop is another one. So it is configuring that Smart Shop and defining that Smart Shop and using it. Choosing the accounts are very important because it is using the default. So that means it is deploying on iShop actually. You can change that. Actually, we have Firebase JSON. And in this, so what should be the public folder? What are the repositories to be added? What should be the destination? So index.html, all these are important. So for all projects, it will configure. Currently, our workspace is having a lot of projects. If you have only one project, you don't need to mention project. You have to just run ng add the Firebase. So automatically it will deploy your application. If there are several applications in your workspace, you have to mention specific particular application name by using the project. That makes everything perfectly deployed here. So this is actually the new technique that we follow. Earlier, generally what people have to do is, so without this ng, generally what we do is, first we use Firebase tools install. After that, we will log into Firebase. After login to Firebase, so you have to run Firebase init. We have to run Firebase init. We have to configure that Firebase init. So the Firebase init, we are configuring for the Firebase init. And hit enter, then it starts the initialization of Firebase. These all not required now. You can just run the ng plugin that you have installed. That new ng plugin is enough for handling everything, right? Initially, this is for initialization. After initialization, Firebase deploying. So this process we need to follow. This is initial. It is asking, are you ready to proceed? You say yes. And after that, it will ask, what do you want to use in hosting? I want to use in hosting. I want to use hosting. You have to select hosting and deploying Firebase sites. And after that, it will ask, do you want to use any public directory? The public directory is actually dist. Dist is the public directory. I want to use that public directory. So that is the public directory we configured. You want to you want to configure single page applications, everything to be written into the index.html. Yes, everything should be in index.html. Firebase installation is completed. After that, what we have to do is we have to run a command called Firebase deploy. Firebase deploy. Then it will deploy that application on Firebase. So these are the general steps that we follow. So my iShop, deploying onto my iShop, it is configuring it to my iShop. So this is the process generally we follow. But now we don't need that. Generally, what you can do is you can simply run this. So ng add fire plugin is there. You can use that plugin. With that, you can simply run ng commands. So with that, you can deploy your application live. That means now it is live, it is working live. And whatever you make the changes in your application, every time you build and deploy, every time you just build and deploy. So that means every time you need to just run this deploy. And whatever changes are there, it will update the changes and it will deploy the new things into that production. That is the basic approach of how we can work hosting on live servers. So that is about building and deploying of Angular applications. And we are making our Angular application live now. It's working live. So these are all the general basic things in understanding, right? So at experience level, testing, development, all this requires a lot of other knowledge also. That means you cannot talk about cloud-based points here. For that, you need to learn cloud. So that is not Angular, right? So if you know cloud, you know everything. You know testing, you know everything. So in Angular, what is integrated, that is what we are discussing here. We are not learning cloud hosting technologies and all, right? Because that is a complicated process. People have to learn AWS, have to learn Azure to deal with the cloud hosting and environments. Here, just we are pushing through a command. So our Angular application. So without knowing cloud environment, you cannot do everything, right? So a lot of configuration need to be done on cloud. So to handle your application live. Generally, you can do this. What you can do is simply you can copy that dist folder in your control panel of your own website if you are having. So if you have your own website hosting, you know that you have a control panel. In the control panel root folder, you have to add this dist folder that is ready. It will be ready for accessing live. This is all the process you need to understand and work with Angular. So I hope you are clear with these topics. And with this, we conclude all our Angular concepts and session. Right? I hope you are clear with all these concepts. With that, we finish all the concept of Angular. And I will upload interview questions and I will upload Angular documents. I will upload some sample projects into our workspace, some sample applications into workspace. You can go through them, right? So interview questions, so and answers, I will post videos explaining those questions and answers. And everything already you are following it. So sharing workspace is not possible because I do regular modifications in the workspace for because several files will be incomplete. It is waste of time. Already I given you complete note about every topic that we discuss. So that is enough. I will upload one complete documentation for you for Angular. So in the documentation, you will find everything what you have learned. So that documentation is enough. Everything is finished what is there in our syllabus to learn, right? Everything is finished. Don't think anything additionally. Right.